surprised Dave with us today. He couldn't believe who I brought for a speaker, so. Anyway, our speaker today has been with us about a year ago on a different topic. And now she is working at Annie's Hope over in Kirkwood, right? Okay. And I'll let her tell you all about Annie's Hope. If you welcome my sister-in-law, Candice Mehmetli.
Now, I did speak here about a year ago, or sometime within the last year and a half, on a different subject, and then I was working with a company out of Columbus. So my mom, and shortly thereafter, they wanted to transfer my position back to Ohio, and since I had just recently moved here, I said, no, I'll just stay, and took a severance and separated from that company. So my mom, when I came here today, she says, now if you lose a job after this, you can never speak to Rotary again. But now I'm with Annie's Hope, the Bereavement Center for Kids. And it is a nonprofit that's based over in Glendale, right, a suburb of Kirkwood. And Annie's Hope, the mission is to provide comprehensive support services to children, teens, and their families who are grieving the death of someone significant. It's not an easy topic for most people to talk about. For me personally, I have a grief story that extends 9 years ago. I lost my husband in a climbing accident. At the time, our daughter was only 7 months old. So I had lost, as a child, I had lost grandparents, and you expect to lose people in your life. And actually, the word lost is something that we try not to use, and it's a very difficult term to get away from losing when you're talking about someone who has died. The primary reason that saying that you lost your life or you lost someone, for children it's very hard for them to understand that if they lose a teddy bear, they can find it. Or if you lose their dog, you can put posters up and you can ask people to help you find it. If they lose a parent or a sibling, it's very difficult for them to come to terms with that person is never going to return. They're never going to physically see that being again. So our mission works with children who have lost a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or a friend, and it could be through a traumatic death or a long-term illness. And our goals are to normalize the grieving process, to connect grieving children with other grieving children so they understand that they're not going through this alone, to encourage family communications so that the children are able to talk to the parents or other siblings or a grandparent and let their feelings be known, because it's something that children will very often withdraw inside themselves. My daughter, for example, was so young when her father died. I didn't think anything about raising her as a single parent, and she started kindergarten in Ohio in a very small private kindergarten where the dads were very connected and very involved in the school. So at 5 years old, she starts demonstrating behaviors that I have never seen before. And I talked with her pediatrician, and I was really concerned. And as we talked with the pediatrician and I, she's like, what's different in her life? And I'm explaining the new environment she's in at school. And she says, I think she's grieving. So I looked for a counselor, and she was in counseling, private counseling, for 2 years with a pediatric grief counselor in Ohio. And as they worked through these problems, her behaviors once again changed and became normalized. So you don't often pick up the clues, especially in younger children. And we work with children as young as 3, and we work with children as old up through teens. So 18 is the top of the children that we work with at our facility. And we don't do one-on-one counseling. We do family support groups, and we try to involve the whole family because it's a unit. When a family experiences a death, everybody in that family is suffering and having different emotional feelings. So you have to bring them together in one way or the other. So we try to decrease their sense of isolation, teach them ways to commemorate the dead, and then get them to have coping strategies, whether it's within their family unit or within outside counseling, so that they can productively express their grief. Annie's Hope was started in 1998 by Becky Sloan. Becky is still our executive director. She was a pediatric nurse, RN, at Children's Hospital working in the oncology ward. So for 13 years she had been doing this, and she had been watching children die and counseling and working with their families. And she is a very funny person. She's very hands-on, very on the floor with the kids, and she realized that what she was doing, working with the surviving children, was making an impact. So she went and got a master's degree in death and dying, and then started Annie's Hope. The name Annie comes from one of the first children that she worked with, and the girl's name was Annette. And Annette actually had leukemia and had a very good success story recovering from leukemia, but as she went away to college, she got an infection that her body within 24 hours deteriorated, and she lost her life very quickly. But her goal as she was dying with her parents was, don't let my sisters mourn for me too long. Make them go out and talk about it. Don't let them be silent. Let them carry on my message of hope as I went through my leukemia, that you can survive this. So they worked with Becky and actually gave the initial funding to start the organization in '98. To date, we've grown and we've worked with over 1,300 children and adults in the St. Louis metro area. We don't have a lot of families that we deal with in Illinois, and it's ways like this that we can expand the word. All of our services are at no fees to the family. We have family support groups, which meet once a week for 8 weeks. And the first meeting and the last meeting, the families are together as a unit. And the other 6 weeks, they actually break up into age-appropriate classrooms and do activities. They may do memory stones. We do a lot of pillowcases where put a piece of cardboard in a pillowcase, and with fabric markers on one side, you write words and feelings that make you angry, or pictures. And on the other side, you draw pictures and words that give you hope and make you feel good. So that then the child, when they're really angry and feeling frustrated, they can punch this pillow on the one side, and when they need comfort and feeling good, they can cuddle and hug the other side. We work with them to commemorate and memorialize the ones who have died in other ways as well. My daughter has made wreaths for her dad, who she barely even knew, as well as when Brad was killed in December. It was one of the very first things she says is, "Mom, we've got to make a wreath." So we've since made Brad a wreath that hangs in our house as well. We do school support programs where we have a team of social workers and school counselors who actually have grief groups in the schools, and expanding them to Illinois would be one of our goals. Those are 6 weeks groups, and we try to keep the groups from about 4 to 8 students per group, and it goes all the way down to elementary age. And they meet either before school or during the lunch hour, and we provide donuts or pizza, whichever way they're meeting, so that then the students are doing these type of activities. One of them, we may do a message in a balloon. We take the Diet Coke and Mentos and let them explode it in the parking lot at the school, so that, because that's how your feelings get. You hold up your emotions and they get all bottled up, and we teach them ways to release them. So then we have teen retreats 4 times a year for a weekend, where teens 13 to 18 go to a campground in Dittmer, Missouri, and they have candle lighting services and one-on-one support. And then they have just group activities. There's a climbing wall. There's a 50-foot tower that they do on this challenge course. We also host 2 week-long camps for grieving children. Camp Courage is now 9 years old and or in its 9th year. That's for children 6 to 12, and it's 5 days